Now we know who they are. You should. If you don't, y'all better get learned up. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me for another reaction video. Now, I believe Spiritbox have got some new music out. When I say new music, I mean new music to me. I'm kind of late to the party on a lot of these. But I know they've got new stuff out because a lot of you guys have been messaging and commenting and saying, when are you going to get to their new music? I also know this because my other half, the wonderful B, has been putting together a list, and it's a list of new music from bands that I've grown to love through this channel. So, B, thank you so much. I appreciate you as a human. I love you lots, and super grateful for that because now it means I don't get to miss out on anything. And this song is in that list, so I'm excited. I don't need much reason to get excited about a Spiritbox reaction, but if it's new, even better. Without further ado, Spiritbox Rotoscope official music video. Let's see what you got.
Shadows boom in the skyline. Surface tension keeps dust in my eyes.
Okay. Different. Wasn't sure quite what to expect with this one, but definitely didn't expect this kind of sound. I know they've got like a lot of variety and depth. I've heard some really melodic stuff, almost ballady. I've heard some really heavy stuff, of course, and then I've heard a bit of a mix of that in between. But I haven't heard anything like this. We've only heard just a small snippet, but it sounds quite like dancey. The music's giving me, right away, giving me some like crazy Rob Zombie vibes. Probably to do with that consistent kind of programmed beat. There's that little pre-beat that sits on the end, which is pretty cool. That leads you in, creates a bit more pace. And the guitar sound is very like, it doesn't sound very analog. Sounds, I know there's obviously a distortion on it and a fuzz and that kind of thing, but it sounds quite digital. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Very interesting. I'm in. Stop in there because we're towards the end of a phrasing. I'll go back just a little so we can lead in. Not mad. Not mad at all. I'm going to need some time to kind of get it in my bones, get it in my body, but I'm not mad. I like this, that kind of affected vocal, which sits a little bit more constrained, isn't the full band of the EQ, so it can sit in a particular pocket and shoot straight forward. Doesn't have to work too hard to climb around the music. I think part of that Rob Zombie vibe that I'm getting is that kind of pre-beat that you're hearing. Obviously, the drums are starting to come in. More traditional sounding drums, at least, alongside it. Or the guitar is kind of accenting that quite sharply, and it's emphasizing that it gives that electronic industrial vibe to it. And now her vocals sound quite layered. Well, but it sounds like there's kind of this dual layering without any phasing, and that's because it's not necessarily a direct duplicate, and if it is, then it's not one that's obvious to me. My phone is trying to talk to me for some reason. Not cool. We're doing a thing. But yeah, really interesting the way they've layered the vocals. It's meant to be heard that way, and it creates a lot of like dynamic elements in that. Interesting how they've created so much space so early on. Very cool. Hang on a second, man. It's interesting for me when a band's able to progress within a minute of a song through a singular idea, albeit fairly intricate and compiled well, to evolve it so much that you can still remember and identify that traditional idea, but so much is added. It's like unwrapping a present, and then it's the thing you want, but actually there's another present in that one, and there's another one, and another one in that one, kind of like a Russian doll thing. It's awesome. I'm very intrigued. It's very different to what I expect, so I'm taking my time to get into it, but I really do like what I'm hearing. There's that synth winding piece that no. You can kind of hear it in the background. It's a higher pitch, so you have to lift up a little bit to hear it. And that's another thing that is kind of that Rob Zombie vibe that I'm getting from this. And I pick out and latch onto certain things from bands, and there's certain identifiers that are obvious to people, and there's ones that are kind of personal. And maybe it's that. Let me know if you agree, if it reminds you of anything else. Let me be clear. It's not the music as in what they're playing. It's the essence of it, the sound. Very clear on that. Not suggesting that anything is kind of like remotely taken or similar to that regard. It's just the essence and the sound for me. Very cool. A big fan of this. Hasn't quite broken, and it does feel like one of those songs that's going to, for at least the majority of the song, if not all the song, maintain this pace and rhythm. Be interested to see if it does that. People are going to be mad as hell for that pause, but y'all going to have to deal with it, Hey, I'm getting a lot of people, not that I don't traditionally, but I'm seeing a lot of people kind of go, your reactions are bad, and wait till the end and then do it. Listen, this is free content. Just deal with it. Take it or leave it. If you're looking, let me just be very clear and say this once and for all. If you're looking for a reaction video where you just watch someone watch the video, then you're not looking for a reaction video. You're looking for company. You're looking for a friend. And that's okay. There's a lot of them out there. It's not what I do. Deal with it. Huh? We good? Let's continue. Very, very, very cool. When it comes out of that piece that, that I'm going to say was the chorus, of course, because we're significantly into the song. There was this kind of like change and evolution of that. A lot more synth. There was nice like echoey parts of the vocals, very full, very full. And then back to what we heard a little bit earlier. So, you're going into kind of that verse element again, but it's very interesting because as it does that, it feels more stripped down. Music does that. It's supposed to have moments of intense melody, intense aggression, intense softness, fullness. It's more amplified. It's not necessarily a volume piece, but when something feels a little bit more reduced, there's this association that it's empty, and it's not the case. I've gone back just a little bit. That is a fantastic place to pause. That is 100% the thumbnail. Call me out if it isn't, unless I find something else really cool, of course. But what happens here is there's still a lot of like kind of synth work going in. There's this almost like radar pinging delay that's got like a very long tail to it. It's dipping a little bit, but it's not dipping quickly, not at all. It's running out long, and the next part is starting over it. So there's this continual busyness behind the guitars, behind the vocals. Very well edited and quite smartly written, to be honest. It's going to be a hell of a song to hear in a club, I can tell you that. Be very interested to see how they do this live and if any compromises are made. And I don't mean that in a bad way. A lot of live music has different variables, and there's different ways of doing things. It's like that Morse codey high frequency in the background. Can you feel the injection behind those cloudy eyes? Get in! In between every color a projection of my life. stopping there. End of a phrasing. We'll go back to the lead in. I'm really liking this. It's grown on me massively. And I think it is one of those songs that is, after a couple listens, going to become a lot of people's favorites. It isn't one of the, we all know who Spiritbox are now. There was that kind of initial shock with some of the initial stuff of like, wow, what a brilliant, brutal vocal. What a wonderful melody. What awesome songwriting. What intricacy in the guitar work. Now we know who they are. You should. If you don't, y'all better get learned up. We know who they are, and we have expectations around certain things. So like they write really brilliant, melodic, powerful choruses, right? Whether they're heavy or soft. This isn't that. It's definitely catchy. It's definitely something that's going to sit with me. And that's awesome. But it isn't this like ultra melodic. This singular idea I spoke about is still persisting. You can follow that kick drum and that snare hit and a lot of the guitar work matched to it from the beginning all the way to here. We'll see where it goes next. But definitely was right on that one. And I think it's important to have songs like this. One, in a set list, and two, on an album. A lot of music's getting released in singles and things like that, and that's fine. But when you listen to an album or you go and watch them live, it's important to have songs like this, which are a break from like the constant kind of super melodic or super heavy. There's something that's in between, something that's very danceable, something that's very journey-like. You're supposed to take listeners on a journey. It's not supposed to be their favorite song times 10. That's not what an album is. It's an expression of all the things they want to create. This is a good example of that. Yes, get in. Pack a lunch. All the things. Vibes. All the vibes. Now that's a cool place to stop. And here's a reference some of you might get. That kind of pose with the hair, everything, kind of reminds me of Guano Apes a little bit. Maybe from the Big in Japan cover video. Not sure. Like this. Sticking to their roots in terms of bringing in that brutal, heavy piece. You could hear something was coming. You could hear it was changing. If you know them, you're likely to guess what it is, but it doesn't make it any less impressive. Really like that heavier bit. They did vary away from the initial idea pretty much as I had been going on about it. Typical of bands to prove me wrong after I make a point where I've been right up until that point. Damn it. But it is interesting because they still kind of stuck to that. The initial idea was there, but they did vary away from it a little bit, and just enough. And I'll tell you why. That more drawn out snare hit with a lot of the busier kick work, what that does is create a familiarity in a different kind of melody. It's like foreshadowing. Melodic foreshadowing is what I call it sometimes. One, because I like to say it, and two, I think it sounds quite smart. But that break of that more flowy vibe to it makes the heavier part even more impressive. If they transition just from the faster pace, that initial idea, it isn't as impactful. Things are done for a reason. And the more you start asking yourself questions around those reasons, the more you start investigating and listening and learning, active listening, the more you start to appreciate music. Not everybody has to get ultra technical about it, but I do think the more you learn, the more you know, the more you appreciate. And I think that's true for pretty much anything in life. Love it. Give me more. Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, a massive, massive, massive fan of that. I don't see anyone that's done a reaction to this one, so I'm gonna go off there. But if anyone has done a reaction to the song that you really liked, you thought was particularly good, please feel free to mention them below, and let's get everyone exposure. There's room for everybody in this. That was cool. Very cool. I was slightly unsure in the beginning, not whether I liked it or not. I was sure that there was going to be elements that grew on me quite significantly, but I was unsure if they were going to follow some of the basic principles, the rules that they put in place when they started writing some of the songs that got them kind of, I guess, the most exposure. And they did. And that's important because you're not actually restricted by those rules. It's not something that holds you in place, but it is kind of a playbook for people who love and appreciate something you've done in the past but are willing to evolve with you. And that's where bands get a lot of flack. They get a lot of shtick, is when people go, the thing I love that you did back then, you don't sound exactly like that right now, and that makes me mad. Well, I say this to those people: not only do bands need to change and evolve, or else they would stop making music, it's a creative outlet for them too. I would also say that you're the problem. You're the one not evolving. Nothing wrong with loving what you love and having emotional and memory connections to certain songs and music and genres and themes. But it's a bit like being in a relationship sometimes, whether that's romantic or friendship. Sometimes people evolve and sometimes people don't, and there's a disconnect. So my recommendation is be open-minded and evolve with these bands. Appreciate and love the effort they put in. I think you'll find you might just like it. That was great. Glad to see them doing some different stuff. Whenever you hear, I think my first introduction to them was Holy Roller, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And it's really brutal, heavy, brilliant, all those things. But you think to yourself, I wonder how many more sides there are to this band. And then you hear some of the more melodic stuff, some really deep messaging, some of the brutality, some of the technicality. Then you hear this and you go, hang on a second. There's a lot more to them than you possibly assume when you first hear them, because they're so good at what they do. You're almost scared they won't be as good if they try to do something else. And then you go, oh, they are. Of course they are. Spiritbox, man. Fire song, did like it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's my favorite from them right now, because I've just heard it, and whenever there's a song with this kind of structure, why am I holding this? This kind of style, it isn't a style that resonates with me traditionally, but I really like what they've done with it, and I can guarantee if I listen to it a couple times, I'm going to be dancing and moving and bopping more than I just was. So yeah, it's a bit of an earworm, that one, I'm sure of it. And I really, really enjoyed that. I think it was brilliantly done. And I am now even more excited to see them live, hopefully one day, please, please, please. But also to see what else they're going to be putting out. If they're experimenting with any other twists on genres or styles. Very cool. I like what's happening here. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for watching. You guys watching really means the world to me. A lot of people say that, and that's because they mean it. You giving up your time, which is the most valuable thing you could ever have. It's worth more than anything, your time. You can't get it back. You can never get it back. And I think the last 3 years have shown us just how important time is. So any time you dedicate to me or to anybody else is extremely appreciated. I can tell you that let me speak for myself. Massively, massively appreciated. Not only that, you should have expectations. You should have high expectations of the content you watch, of my content. You should be critical in a way that's constructive. If you have an idea or a suggestion, that by no way means that I'm going to adapt and use it, but I am open to listening. Can't even get my words out now. That song's just buzzing in my head. I am open to listening, and I sure will consider what you say. If you're going to just be destructive and silly and selfish and act as if these reactions that I in no way get any monetary value from, hopefully one day, hopefully the stars align, I will let you know if that happens. Yeah, if you think it's just for you, it's not. It's for as many people as possible, and why shouldn't it be? At its core, it's for me, and then as many people as I can get it to, because that's good for everybody, I think. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. Until the next one, please be safe, be super extra amazingly nice to each other, and have a damn good day.